מזמור לדוד, אדוני אלוהי לא יחסר, בנותיך ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת בשם מראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתו בית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As Cantor Schiffman began our service today by chanting the words of Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, I'll ask for those who know to join me in the English recitation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We gather here today to celebrate an incredible life, to remember with great love and also with difficulty to say goodbye to someone that we thought would be here forever by our side. Today we gather to bring great tributes to the life and the memory of our beloved Shirley Weiss, Mimi, a loving daughter, a loving sister, a loving wife, a loving mother, a loving grandmother, a loving great-grandmother, a loving aunt, and a loving friend. We read in our Bible, L'kol zaman ve'et l'kol chefes takat hashamayim, et laledet ve'et lamut. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. A time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping, a time for discarding, a time for loving, a time for hating, a time for embracing, a time for refraining, a time for laughing, a time for weeping, a time for dancing, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for speaking, a time for silence, a time for seeking, and a time for losing. Our rabbis teach us something contrary to our secular understanding, and that is we always celebrate births, but the rabbis say that we should also celebrate at the time of death, and they compare our lives to that of a ship. When you think of a cruise ship or a big ship leaving the harbor for the first time, there's often much fanfare and celebration. Bands are playing, there's streamers and banners, everyone's celebrating. The rabbis say that's not the time one should be celebrating when a ship leaves the harbor, because no one knows what seas and storms, what challenges, what obstacles lay in its path. No one knows until a ship returns home safely. And oftentimes when a ship returns to port after a long voyage, there is not much fanfare. The porters are there to unload the cargo and the luggage, but there are not bands. And the rabbis say this is not the right way. It is at the end, when the ship returns home after a long voyage, a long journey. That is when we should celebrate. because it has returned home safely. And so the rabbis say it is for each one of us. We can surely say that Shirley has returned home safely. She's returned to the harbor, returned to heaven. When we say that she's left this world with a good name, reaching nearly 97 years, living a full life, building this incredible family, as she was the matriarch, she was Mimi. Mimi has left behind many in mourning, her children and their spouses, who became like her own children, Pam and Matt, and Bob and Diane, the apples of her eye, her grandchildren, Beth and Greg, Jeff and Kristen, Nora and Aaron, and the diamonds in her crown, her 4 great-grandchildren, Ben and Lulu, Corin and Truman, her brother Bill, nephews Larry and Howard, and so many more adoring nephews and nieces and friends. Shirley now joins her beloved husband Joe of blessed memory, married for nearly 60 years. Her parents Lillian and Ben Cohn. She joins them all in their eternal home in heaven. At this point, I'm going to call up granddaughter Beth for a family tribute.
The common phrase that kept getting repeated to me over the last few days was on her own terms. That Mimi lived her life, including her final days, on her own terms. It didn't sit with me, because I think of that phrase as being exclusive and detached and singular, and that is not Mimi. Mimi was the most inclusive person I know. She never dismissed anyone's behavior. Of course, she let you know she didn't agree with it. She was particular. She had her way of doing things, like how you salt the chicken and let it sit before even starting the soup, or how the ratio of chocolate to soda in a chocolate phosphated Corky's was high on the chocolate and low on the phosphate, and if it didn't meet that recipe, it was sent back. Even if she was only going to drink 3 sips and expected you to split it with her. Not only do many of you know this, but any waiter who had the pleasure of serving her was quite aware of how particular she was. Being particular never came with judgment. She didn't understand Nora's tattoos or Aaron's music or Jeffrey's politics or my working, but she appreciated all our unique styles and pursuits. She was just happy to be included and expected the same from us. But not just her grandchildren. She was up on everybody's doing, not in a nosy way, but in an inclusive way. Today, many call that building your community or village. It always seemed to me that Mimi never knew anything different. Until this week, I never realized my own constant need to be social came from Mimi. I don't mean activism. I mean being surrounded by people you care about, being busy with others. It still amazes me in these awful Cleveland winters that she had dinner plans most nights, whether her rekindled friendship with her brother, Uncle Bill, her Sunday night dinners at my parents', her luncheons at Montefiore, and of course, her long-standing friendships that went back to high school. Even her late-in-life friendship with Ilsa was an inspiration. She was never alone. My mom thought Mimi's childhood had a lot of chaos and disruption. I never knew until this week she went to 5 different schools in 1 year. But my mom points out that amount of change led her to a desire for connection and a lifelong commitment to her family and friends. She stuck with people and brought more people together to give them that same foundation. And that attachment lasted their entire lifetime together. You could see it whenever her friends were around. Many trips to California involved Mimi and I with different friends, Frida, Helen Kay, Bev Siegel. I would sit with them and hear stories 50, 60, 70 years old, and they would still laugh about what happened then. But what was most amazing to me was that they would let me into those stories, included me. Another way she brought everyone together was through her food. Whether baking coconut squares or rugala for care packages, or to sit out in those small paper liners whenever you stop by. To her, impossible to duplicate matzo ball soup as hard as I try. Every person we've reminisced with this week mentioned her cooking. So I guess on her own terms is really about the definition of terms. Her terms were the people in her life. She lived her life for the people she brought into it. And now we will find a way to keep her in our lives. To honor how she was inclusive as well as particular. To drink chocolate milk, make better matzo balls, and keep memories alive.
Thank you, Beth. That was beautiful. The book of Proverbs at the end contains a special passage that in our Jewish tradition, it is recited on Friday nights from husband to wife, from children to mother, from grandchildren to grandmother. It's called Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, and I think it most definitely suits Shirley. Eshet Chayil miyimsa v'rakot michra batak bale bala v'shala lo yaksar. What a precious find is a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She's good to him, never bad all the days of her life. She opens up her hand to the needy. She extends her hand to the poor. She's clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household, never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her, saying, "Many women have done superbly, but you excel them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty vain. A God-fearing woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and whenever people gather, her deeds will always speak her praise. Shirley lived for family and loved to brag about them to you. She was loyal, very social, with a large circle of friends. Modest and frugal, growing up in the Great Depression, she was strong, handling and overcoming the crises and challenges in her life. She never sought recognition or reward. She was simply proud and loved having the opportunity to kvel about her family. She never held a grudge or complained. She was practical. She had a great native intelligence. She was politically astute, a voracious reader. She led a quiet life. She had her opinions, but only shared them when asked, except at a restaurant, which you already heard about. Family was first, most important, and everything to her. She was the family fixture, always there with you. She wasn't just present with you, she was an active part of your lives, of your family dinners, of the gatherings, of the holidays, of the simchas. Mimi always made it better, especially with her cooking and baking. Shirley grew up moving often, as you heard, with the family throughout all parts of Cleveland. And there was that one school year when she moved 5 different times. But each time Shirley adjusted. She made it through. In high school, they moved from Collinwood, where they loved it and had so many friends, out to Lakewood, where there were not so many friends and not so many Jews in the late 1930s. And still strong, Shirley did it, and she did it well. Flexible and practical, she made new friends and found her place. It was in Lakewood that their father had opened his bar, the Mars Bar, and Mimi, in her early teen years, tended bar. 5 cents a beer, 10 cents a shot. And the story goes that when she was 16 years old, sitting on a bar stool at her father's bar, in walked Joe Weiss on the west side to fix the jukebox in the bar that had broken. Well, they went to senior prom together, and as we like to say, the rest is history. They were married on August 2nd, 1942, at Shirley's parents' home in Lakewood, with Rabbi Ganuth officiating, Shirley wearing that blue velvet suit. Soon Joe was in the service during the war, and Shirley followed him from base to base as much as she could, supporting her husband wherever he was stationed in the States. Of course, they made Cleveland their home, on Ormond Street in Cleveland Heights, and then the Mayflower Apartments. Together they loved to play bridge, to go out to eat, spending their winters in Florida, family trips driving out west, traveling to Israel, the Northwest, Alaska, and even their cruise phase. They were devoted life partners, and when Joe's health declined, Shirley was his caregiver. And when he moved to Montefiore, Mimi visited Papa every single day, always there by his side. And even after his death 16 years ago, she continued to go to Montefiore, becoming a volunteer fixture for many, many years. Mimi and Papa were quite the pair. He was outgoing and got the recognition. She was quiet and gave the recognition. Together they were president of Beth Am's Mr. and Mrs. Couple Club. Joe was installed as the president at HBSU at the 100th anniversary, and at the same time Shirley was installed as the president of the Women's Auxiliary. It was all about Joe, and that was fine by Shirley. She reveled in the accomplishments of others, most especially her family. An amazing mother, she was simply the best. She had a way of making the house always feel settled, quiet, ordered. It was most certainly the cleanest house on the block, if not the city. She lived for her children, and Mimi and Papa even took in a foster child, Lee, who was in her teen years, who became another child in the family. After the kids were old enough and in school, Mom went back to work. She was a bookkeeper, first for Seitz Agen hardware store, and then Weissman Furniture, and always doing that market research project for Sylvia Rosen at the malls. And having known Pam so well, and how wonderful and incredible a person you are, I can say that the apple did not fall far from the tree. Mimi instilled in her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren the need to set high expectations for themselves and helped give them the confidence that they would not only achieve them, but most certainly exceed them. Mimi loved each and every one of you so much, and she would brag to everyone about you. She had the best memory. It was unbelievable what she could remember. Mimi was never alone, as you said. She always organized a get-together. Her weekly dinners with her brother Bill, lunch with the ladies, Friday dinners with the friends, and of course, as Beth said, Sunday night dinner every single week at Pam and Matt's house with the family. She made friends, collecting a cadre of friends from all over. She was loyal. She had her lifelong friends from the Zanta High School Club, 7 women growing up first on 105th Street, remaining friends for an entire lifetime, going through all of life's ups and downs together. Now there's only one remaining from the group. All her friends would be invited to the weekly Sunday night dinners at Pam and Matt's, and most especially her best friend Ilse. They were inseparable. Ilse lived 1 floor above her. They were besties. Ilse became another member of the family. Another mom to Pam and Bob, another grandmother to Jeffrey and Kristen, Beth and Greg, Nora and Aaron. When Mimi needed help, she found her own caretaker, Lauren, who was so devoted to Mom, helping her every day. It was such an immense help to the entire family to know Lauren was there, along with Helene and Larry and so many other neighbors and friends that always looked out for Mom and cared for her. Jeffrey shared with me that we were so lucky to have Mimi be such a tremendous part of our lives, and for our children to have so many wonderful memories of their great-grandmother. What a blessing. Kristen always loved the great stories she'd share, like about finding the bathroom in the middle of the desert in that family car ride out west. You've already heard Mimi was a gourmet baker and chef. All old-school traditional foods, but she was incredible in the kitchen, in her tiny little kitchen. She taught each of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren the family rite of passage, how to make charosses for Pesach. And she would watch over you to make sure it was just right, whether in person or over FaceTime. Diane, you told me that when you started dating Bob, boxes, or better, care packages would arrive regularly at his place, sent from Mom, stuffed to the gills, but packed just right, with chocolate truffles, Russian tea biscuits, coconut squares, better than you could find in any bakery. This is what you said. From the tiniest kitchen, she made the most elaborate, exotic desserts, and never from a recipe. For the grandchildren's wedding showers, Pam helped Mom write out the family recipes. When Mom would make it, you would stick a measuring spoon underneath to catch it, and so that you could measure and write down the right amounts. You worked on that family cookbook, and Beth, you told me that cookbook is the centerpiece of your kitchen, the most worn pieces of paper in your entire home. I heard, Beth, that you inherited Mimi's cooking genes. You've almost mastered the best chicken soup in the world, the best matzo balls. And I know that you still were calling her to make sure you had things exactly right. Pam, you told me that for more than 50 years, magically, your freezer would always be stocked with soup. Never asked, it was just there. Mom was always taking care of you and Matt, making her specialties, chicken soup, the mushroom barley with hot dogs or salami, Matt's favorite, the split pea. And Pam, it took you 50 years to master Mom's soup recipe. This year, she said, you got close. I'll take that as approval. The passing of the mantle to the next generation. She loved cooking for the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. Truman said that Mimi made the best chocolate milk in the world. It was delicious. You couldn't have Mimi for dinner unless she had butter, whole milk, and marrow bones on the table. And when you made hamburgers in the broiler, you'd always dip the rye bread in the drippings. She made her stuffed cabbage and beef liver for Matt. She must have really liked you, Matt. Her rugelach was world famous. Pesach Seder at Mimi and Papa's was amazing. Papa led a command performance. You had to be on your toes ready at the drop of a hat when Papa would call you to take your part. It was a traditional 3-hour Seder. And then all the food. Mimi went all out. She did it all. Shirley showed us all how to be a loyal friend. Always resourceful, flexible, with an inner strength and resilience. And that the closest way to your heart is through your stomach. She lived a long life and left us all still wanting more time with her. Shirley always remained so strong and positive. She was content and well cared for, with respect and love from the whole family. You gave her the dignity to still be the matriarch, to be Mimi. You ensured that she was always cared for with compassion and love. And there are special words to say to Pam and Matt, along with Bob and Diane coming in and out of town from Boston. You were all always there. In good health, thank God for so many years. Amazing children, so devoted and dedicated to your mother. And I know that she made it easy, but you did go above and beyond the call, caring for her. We can surely say that Shirley is now at peace. May her name always bring us blessings, and we say, Amen. We'll rise now as Cantor Schiffman recites the memorial prayer.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונם, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת שרה בבנימין וליבם, שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם. אהנה בעל הרחמים, הסתריה בסדר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים ונשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום המשכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of our beloved Sarah, the daughter of Benjamin Veliba, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May she merit the reward from living a life filled with righteousness, kindness, and love. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. Following the service, interment will take place at Mount Olive Cemetery. Then family will receive friends at the Goss Residence, 2367 Traymore Road in University Heights, immediately following the burial today until 8 p.m. And they'll also be sitting Shiva Friday from 1 to 4, Saturday from 7 to 9. Those that would like to contribute in Shirley's memory and name can do so to the Maltz Hospice Care of Montefiore Home.